Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. So we are going to be dealing with, this is several parts. So this is part one, sanctity of marriage embedded in the Torah. Now some of these things you probably heard before, but I'm going to try to bring it down in the name of the Kliyakar, the way that he expresses it. And we'll start in Parasha Noach, which just passed recently. Dealing with the dimensions of the ark. The dimensions of the ark, why do we need to know them? I understand if we're dealing with the Aron HaKodesh, which something that we have as a continual mitzvah, as long as we have the Beit HaMikdash and the service, you need to know how big it is to replicate it, to have it in case it gets stolen or lost or destroyed. And in Mitzvah Shem, with God's help, very soon we'll have a Beit HaMikdash and we'll restore the actual golden ark. But in the meantime, the Torah tells us that the actual ark, that's what we call the Teva of Noach, is 300 amot by 50 amot. Okay, so if you go to in Parshas Noach, we're dealing with chapter 6, verse 9. Actually, it's going to be verse 15. Okay, 6:15. This is how you should make it. 300 cubits the length of the ark, 50 cubits its width, and 30 cubits its height. So how long is a cubit? How long is that measurement? So we say that it's from your elbow until the tip of your finger. It's approximately 18 to 22 inches. So on average 20 inches. And for those who deal with inches. Meters, I don't know, it's about a half a meter, approximately. Okay, so why is that so relevant, these measurements, especially since it's a one-time deal? So there's a rectification going on. What was the reason for the Mabul, for the flood to begin with? So according to many, according to the oral tradition, it's because of what we call znut. That would be the opposite of a healthy, sanctified marriage. That would be playing the field, so to speak. That would be doing things in an immodest fashion, having relationships in an illicit sexual way. So the Kliyakar gives two reasons why the measurements are necessary. One, and we're going to just deal with this very quickly. The second reason we will deal with at length. So the first reason he tells us is because to inform us of how great the miracle was that something so small could carry so much. So that is quite miraculous. And for example, there were many large animals. He gives an example of elephants and something called the re'enim, which are like big antelopes, so huge animals with very large horns. Okay? Now the second idea, which we will go at great length, we're the third line down, by the way, for those who just walked in. Lahodia lanu, to inform us, to let us know what? She'ikar hatchalat yemei mei hamabul haya ba'avur haznut. Because the prime reason for the deluge, for the flood, was on account of immodesty. When it came, we talk about sanctification. That is the complete opposite. So when you learn about the one aspect, you can learn a lot about the other aspect, right? To learn about why there was a flood and what we need to do to rectify that. So we'll find out if you hang in there for the next 4 hours. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi Chesed.
So the first proof that the original reason for the flood was because of znut, which we will translate as immodesty, in a sexual way. We all know the reason why the flood eventually came, we call it the straw that broke the camel's back, was because of Gezel. But by the time we finish this, we'll realize that Gezel and znut go hand in hand.
Is-
Gezel is theft. So the straw that broke the camel's back and why Hashem brought the flood eventually was because of theft. But the original idea was because of znut. So if you open up your Chumash, or I should say Tanakh, actually this is in Genesis chapter 6 verse 2. It says over there, the sons of the nobles saw the daughters of man, and they took for themselves wives from whomever they chose. Okay, the whole verse is, right? It's in Genesis 6:2. V'yiru b'nei Elohim es benosa Adam, ki tovot hine v'yichu lehem nashim mikol asher b'charu. They took for themselves wives from whomever they chose. The truth is, we learn from that not only did they take women who were already engaged to someone else and they had intimate relations with them while they were betrothed to be married to someone else. And we find this in history too, amongst many despots and really cruel rulers. Generals of armies would take virgins, would take women on their wedding day to be married to someone else and to violate them. But they also were involved in bestiality. Okay? So that's what the essence of that verse means. So what does Chazal teach us from this? In Gemara Sanhedrin, page 108, Aleph, it says, Barabba kilkalu, Barabba nidonu. Because of the great ruination, because of the sin, it was great. Therefore, the judgment was great. I mean, we all ask, why should we all suffer? Because a few people sinned? No. It seemed like majority. It was very hard for Noach to find even animals who were of, I don't know what you call it, purebred, thoroughbred, who weren't mixed breeds. So how does this work? What we do, man, affects the world. When we misbehave in such a manner, and even involve ourselves in bestiality, and the animals picked up on it, and they were also intermingling with different species. So you may ask, why did all the animals have to suffer? They don't even have free will, right? Because they were corrupt. Their DNA, their being, their min, became corrupt. So they had to be destroyed. Why? What about the fish? They weren't destroyed. The fish are in a different realm of reality. Underneath the water, we say the ayin hara, right, will not be affected. That's why we hope ourselves to be like the fish, like Yosef. He's not affected by the ayin hara, like the fish are not affected by mankind's corrupt activities. So the fish were not killed off. But the animal life, innocent animal life, was killed. But not that they were guilty, but it had to be destroyed and started over again. So the reason for the matter, according to the Kli Yakar, and this is going to be the prime theme running for tonight, is Lefish al Yidei Znut, because through this looseness in sexual activity, Chilalu Kedushat Shem Shel Yud and Hey. There was a desecration of the holy name of God. God has many names. We're talking about the desecration of the Yud Hey name. Okay, there's a name of God, Yud Hey. And it's that name which is metavech bein ish liisha. It actually mediates. It's a glue that keeps man and woman together. It's the Yud and the Hey. How do we know? First of all, the name itself. Ish is Aleph Yud Shin, has a Yud in the middle, but it's Aleph and Shin, with a Yud in the middle. Isha is also Aleph Shin, but a Hey at the end. You should know in Kabbalah, the Yud represents the male, the Hey represents the female, and in the name Ish and Isha, you have the Yud and the Hey. And when, God forbid, there is, you take God out of the relationship, you have all that you have left is fire. So listen to how he explains it. Ubehitchalek mehem Yud and Hey. God apportioned both the man and the woman in his creation of the world, the Yud and the Hey, right, in their names. And if they're removed, Nishar Eish Ve'esh, all that remains is fire. Not just fire, fire and fire. Fire and fire. Just like it says. Now this verse is going to show you some really interesting ideas. And it's in Job 31:12. It actually says, for it is fire. It is fire. It consumes to destruction. And it uproots all my grain. Now you just take this verse for what it is. The Aish is very destructive and it will consume. But if you look at the few verses before, which I want to do, because you'll see in context how Job 31:12 makes a lot more sense that he's bringing it. Listen to these words. It's 31:12. You got that, Sarah? Listen to these words. I'm going to go back to number 7. 31:7. If my steps ever veered from the proper way, so what's the proper way? Or if my heart ever went after my eyes, that already tells you something. Or if anything ever clung to my hand, then may I sow and let another eat, and may my produce be uprooted. If my heart was ever seduced over a woman, or if I ever lie in wait at my neighbor's door, right? What are we talking about? You'll hear. This is our verse. Verse 10, sorry. We're really looking at verse 12, but we're at number 10 now. Then may my wife grind for another man. This is not X-rated pornography. This is the Tanakh. This is Job. If I go ahead, right, measure for measure, if I'm going and looking after other women, if I'm going and trying to have bread from someone else's basket, if I'm willing to drink from someone else's well, then may my wife grind for another man, and may strangers kneel over her. Very explicit. But we're not even there yet. For that is licentiousness. That is an iniquity for the judges to punish. And now our verse. For it is a fire. It consumes unto doom, and it would uproot all my produce. You see where it went? It's pretty explicit what fire and how it can be so consuming that it can destroy the relationship between man and woman. So we're going on. He says, this is exactly what the rabbis say in the section Sanhedrin, page 108b. It said, Beroischin kilkelu, uberoischin nidona. Through heat, through something boiling, that's what ruined it. And through heat and boiling, that's how it was judged. So we all know that at least on the dry land, it certainly had an effect. The hot water came up from the ground. Yes, there was rain for 40 days and 40 nights, but that was cold rain. And that didn't have the major effect on the flood. The major effect on the flood was the water that came up from below, from the abyss, and it was boiling. So that boiling water, remember, everything that God does is measure for measure. He loves us so much, he sends a message that we should try to understand and learn what it is that we need to correct. So because of the boiling water coming up, we know that the sin was caused of heat, of maybe heat of passion, right? There's a lot of ideas behind that. In the animal world anyway, when the female is in the process of ovulation and is ready for copulation in order to repopulate their species, she goes into heat. We, human species, we say, I'm hot, whether female or male. There's this concept of heat as well. But I think it's talking about the heat of passion. But the truth is it's talking about the heat of the fire, the destructive fire. When you take the yud and the hey out of the relationship, heat is what's left, eish. And therefore, that itself is destructive. And as the Kliyakar says, Ki hein hitzitu et eish ba'atzmam. They actually lit the fire themselves by removing the yud and the hey, God's name, God from your relationship. Then what are you left with? Only destructive behavior. Now this is where I really find that it was interesting, and I thought this is really good for the topic tonight of the sanctity of marriage. While the flood was going on, everything around was to be destroyed. And they were actually commanded. Who was on the ark? 8 people, right? Noach and his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. They were actually not allowed to have relations, sexual relations, intimacy on the ark for almost a year. We do know that one of them did. That's not tonight's topic, although we'll probably pick it up another time. But while the whole world is being destroyed, is not a time for you to copulate and celebrate to a certain extent the destruction of humankind. Nevertheless, what we're about to describe, the atmosphere, the spiritual atmosphere on this ark, on the teva, on the boat, was a sense of purification through the yud and the hey. Now we're going to describe it in detail, but I want you to know something else. While it was destructive forces outside of the ark, right, the turbulent waters, it was also a mikveh. The entire world had to be sanctified and purified. And because the earth had become corrupt, the earth needed a purification. Interestingly enough, the Medrash tells us that the whole world except for Eretz Yisrael was under the flood. Eretz Yisrael did not need to be purified because it is pure. Okay. Now, he begins by telling us, we find in our Parshas Noach, so many number 15s. Because what is the name? Yud and Hey. It's equivalent to the number 15. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, you have 15. There are many 15s. If you open your Chumash, so it says that there were 15 amos, cubits. That's where the water went. Milamala Gavru Hamayim. The water was 15 amos above the highest mountains. According to some, it was 15 amos above the entire earth. At any given, so if you were in the Himalayas, it was 15 amos above the highest mountain, and if you were by the Dead Sea, it was only 15 amos above, the salt areas over there. How that worked, I don't know. But the Chumash tells us that the water strengthened itself 15 amos above the highest mountains. And not only that, you know what else comes up as 15? How many days did it rain for? 40 days. But it doesn't say that. It says that the water strengthened itself for 150 days. So yes, it rained for 40 days, but the water came up from the bottom also. And that kept rising. It kept strong and getting stronger for 150 days. So what's 150 related to 15? Simple, times 10. You don't have to bring your calculator. I'm going to help you through the evening. We're going to have lots of math to do. So now we get to the length and the width. The length, we said, was 300 amos, and the width is 50. So simple, 3 times 5 is 15. So how many do you have? 3 zeros? 15,000. So on a 2-dimensional level, it's 300 by 50. So on a 2-dimensional plane, it's 15,000 amos square. And did you know it was 30 meters high, 30 amos high? So that's real simple math too, with a little calculator. So you come out to 45, but here it's 45 with a lot of zeros. So it's 450,000. But let's deal with 45. If there were 3 levels and they were all equal, so you have 45 divided by 3 is 15. 15 times 3 is 45. So you had 450,000 in a 3-dimensional way. The area, the volume, was 450,000. So what was each level? Each level was 150,000 square volume cubits. So the Kliyakar tells us that, I'll just read his words, right? He says there were three levels, and the total was 30 amos. So you have 10 amos on each level. That's the height. And that all three levels were actually all equal. So he tells you it comes out to 150,000 amos on each level, which we already did the math ourselves. So he says that the 15,000 amos on the two-dimensional level is parallel to the 15 amos that the water was above the highest mountains, and the 150,000 on volume on each level parallels the 150 days that the water was strengthened, which is 10 times 15. And so he says all these numbers of 15 teach you what? That ready? Sha'afa pi shenitchatem dinam ala gezel. Even though that the final punch, the final decree for the flood came as a result of thievery, gezel. Mekom mekom ikar hatchala hayta ba'avur znut. V'chilu Hashem shel yud hey. That the prime reason for the original idea behind bringing the flood was on account of immodesty. When it came to having relationships, and the desecration of the name of Yud Hey, which equals 15. Now, this is fascinating. If you know anything about the Tanakh, you heard of Hezekiah. He was a king, and he had a problem. He never got married. Well, until Isaiah came and paid him a visit. So Isaiah thought, look, I'm the prophet. He should come to me. The king should come to me. I'm the prophet. And what did the king think? The prophet should come to me. So nobody came to nobody, and Hezekiah got sicker and sicker. So now this was a reason for Hezekiah to visit him. It's a mitzvah to visit the sick. So he went to visit the sick. You know the first thing he told him? You better have your will ready. Can you imagine going to visit the sick and telling him, hey, I have a good deal on an obituary and a good deal on a casket, and I got a plot for you. I mean, come on. But he says, what does he say? In Isaiah chapter 38, verse 1, Tzav lebeitecha, go command your children, well, your house, which really means write your will. Ki meisata, because you are dead. V'lo tichye, and you will not live. That's what you say to somebody? So what he was giving him rebuke. This is what the prophets did. That's what they were there for, to get the people back on track, to keep the Torah. So Chazal tell us when he said you are dead, it meant in this world. You've basically cut yourself off. You've killed yourself in this world. And you will not live in the world to come. You have no portion in the world to come, basically. So the big question that we all have, and we should have, is why such a stringent punishment for such a light crime? So he didn't get married. He should lose all of life, this world and the next world. So this is an important verse to remember. This is in Isaiah 26, verse 4. It says, trust in the Lord forever. Bitchu ba'adonoi adei ad. For in Yah, the Lord, is the rock of eternity. Ki b'Yah Adonai tzur olamim. Now you can translate this many different ways. Because it's in the name Yud He of God, who is the rock of the world. Okay, you can read it like that. We're going to understand it on that level and beyond. It's Isaiah 26, verse 4. Bitchu ba'adonai adei ad, ki b'Yah Adonai tzur olamim. Trust in the Lord forever, for Yah, in the Lord, is the rock of eternity. This is going to be very fundamental because we're going to learn that it was in the name Yud Hey that God actually created the worlds. The whole world is founded on Yud and Hey, that he used the Yud to create the world to come and the Hey to create this world. There's two worlds. This is in Gemara Menachot, in 29b. It says, Ha'olam hazeh, this world was Nivra Behei. God used in the Yud and the Hey of the name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but even just the name Yud and Hey is a name. He created this world, and Olam Haba B'Yud. Now, it was through somebody like Hezekiah not involving himself in getting married. You know, there's a code when it says, Shelo Asak B'Piri Rivya. It's not up to you if you have children or not, if you do everything you're supposed to do. That comes from God. But to not get married, that means there's no chance. Right? So, through not involving himself or oneself in trying to be fruitful and multiply, what you do is you cause the name of Yud and Hey to be removed from Ish and Isha. As we already mentioned in the beginning, that the Yud in the word Ish, the Hey in the word Isha, are there because God created this world and the world to come. He created man and he created female for a purpose. Now I tell many of my unmarried friends who ask me, I tell them, they say, oh yeah, you're just half a man if you're not married, you're just half a woman. I say, no, it's not what it says. You're not even the category of a human being until you get married.
Wonderful.
Now, we're not talking about divorced people who are getting over, trauma and trying to get their lives together because we know that they want to get remarried. We're talking about people who are not intent on getting married. So if you're young and you're trying to get married, don't sweat it. And if you're older, get over it and definitely try to find a life partner. You'll see that's what life's all about. When you wake up in the morning or you're through your day and you have someone who will hopefully be a constructive critic. Constructive critic. You have a chance of working on your character, right? I remember when I was very young and before I got married, my rabbi told me, you're the nicest guy in the world, everyone loves you. As soon as you get married, it's all out the window. But you got to know, she's going to be very critical, but it's going to be constructive, and you have to look at it that way. Okay, so if you read Shalom Arosh's book and his philosophy, you'll understand it even better.
Which one?
Shalom Arush. Many of us find, but anything to do with relationships, man and woman. So listen to what he says. That through not involving yourself in Piria Varivia, in proactive relations, you cause the name of Yud and Hey to be removed. And then what? It's Havikilu Hichriv Kol Shnei Olamos. It's as if you're actively participating in destroying those two worlds. Asher mitziyotam talui b'shem shel Yud Hey, which their very existence, this world, the world to come, their very existence is hanging on the Yud and the Hey. As we read in that verse in Isaiah 26, verse 4, Ki biyah Hashem sur olamim. That's the name to trust. Ki istalek Hashem mikol hanivroim. This is the most scariest statement because you're causing the name of Hashem to be removed from the entire creation just by not getting married. Al kein dino liyot nitrad min shnei olamos. That's why the din, that's why the judgment is that you're cast out from both worlds. So too the din of the Mabul, the door of the Mabul, the generation of the flood. Lefi shechilulu shem shel Yah, they desecrated the name of the Yud and the Hey. So guess what? Hayagam kein dinam charutz l'tarei min olam hazeh v'olam haba. They also, their judgment would be complete casting out from both worlds, as the Medrash, as the Mishnah in Sanhedrin on page 106, side 2, says that the generation of the flood, Ein Lehem Chelek L'Olam Haba, they don't have a portion in the world to come, and of course we know they lost Olam Hazeh as well. Now this is important for the opposite, because what I said in the beginning is we can learn about the sanctity of marriage through the opposite of what we're learning here. It says in Psalms 118, verse 17, I shall not die. This is King David. I shall not die, but I shall live. This is very similar to those words that we saw that Isaiah tells to Hezekiah. He says, you are dead, you will not live. Here's the other way around. I shall not die, but I shall live and tell the deeds of God. But in Hebrew, it's Yah, Yud and Hey. Lo and Mut, I will not die. Ki echye, but I will live. So I'm not going to die in this world, yet I'm going to live in the world to come. V'esaper ma'aseh, and I will tell over the deeds of Yud and Hey. Many names of God. King David knew what he was talking about. He's going to tell over the deeds of the Yud and the Hey. Why is that? So the explanation is like this. When it says, Lo emut, I will not die, that's Olam Hazeh. Yet I will live, that's also in the world to come. V'saper ma'aseh, that I will tell over the deeds of Yud Hey, because it's the Yud Hey of the name of Hashem, who's Tzur Olamim, the creators of the world. But listen to this. You understand the word Tzur not as rock, but as Yitzur, creator of the world. It's the Yud Hey that is the fundamental building blocks of these two worlds that were created. Kishnei olamos heim ma'aseh, because those two worlds that were created are the handiwork of Yud Hey, of God. Lefikach, therefore, do you know, if you know Tanakh, this is like you're either going to get goosebumps or fall off your chair. Kishechazer Chizkiah b'tshuva, when Hezekiah said, he cried his brains out, his face off, and he begged for forgiveness, and he did tshuva, and you know what? He married. He said, Isaiah, I'll marry, but I had this vision, I was going to have an evil child, so as possible, a guarantee against having an evil child, give me your daughter to marry. He married Isaiah's daughter. He didn't die. You know what Isaiah says to him? Listen to this. The kibo olav la'asok pibru vivya. So when Hezekiah did tshuva and he accepted upon himself to get married, Hagzer Shem Shel Yala Makomo, the Yud and Hey comes back to the right place. And regarding this, look in Isaiah chapter 38, verse 5. It says, Hinene Yosif al Yemecha. Behold, this is Isaiah speaking in the name of God, right? Behold, I will add to your life Chamesh Esrei Shana, 15 years. 15 years are added, it says in the verse, because he made a decision to get married. Yud and Hey comes back into his life. 15 years are added to his life. But it's a strange language. Listen to what he does with the language. Keneged Shem Shel Yah. So the 15 years are parallel to the Yud and Hey. That's the equivalent to 15. But guess what was said? Hinene Yosif. Behold, I will add. That's not really true. That's not the correct translation. If you say Hinene Yosif, it says, behold, he will add. But it's Isaiah speaking in the name of God. So why would he say, behold, he would add? He's speaking in the name of God. It has to be Hineni Mosif. Behold, I will add. So the Kliyakar points out that this language of Hinene Yosif is very strange. That's not proper diktuk. That's not proper grammar. So the fact that it says Hinene Yosif, actually, it's an anomaly. It's something strange. It's telling us something. So Reishi Tevos means the first letter of those two words. Actually, instead of a Hey and a Mem, it's a Hey and a Yud. Hineni Yosif. It should be grammatically correct, Hinene Mosif. But the fact that it goes out of its way to say Hinene Yosif with the Hey and the Yud teaches us that it was in the merit of the Yud Hey that he brought back to his life. That's why he was given the 15 years, just in case you didn't get the whole connection between 15 years Yud Hey and that coming back in his life. Now, if you thought that was interesting, this is what is quoted in Gemara Sukkot, in the second Sukkot, in Perek Chalil. That would be page 53, side A. When Dovid dug down, Dovid was not, he did not merit to build the Beit HaMikdash. He had the money, but God did not allow him. But he wanted to make sure that it was going to be in the right place because it's a pretty big area on the Temple Mount. And he wanted to make sure he spent his money wisely. So he did some excavation. He dug down through we'll call the foundation stone. And as he dug, the waters started to come up. And he knew about the flood. He knew why the flood had come. On account of what? Znut, illicit sexual relations, immodest behavior. And as the story goes, it started to rise. And he went to his Rabbi. And he asked his Rabbi, look, we know, because he knew Torah, everyone knows Torah, King David, that the Sota, to prevent, to find out whether or not there was illicit sexual relations, God's name is written on this parchment. It's scratched off. She drinks it. And if she's guilty, she dies. And if she's not guilty, she gets pregnant. So there's a concept of erasing God's name only for a holy purpose. Otherwise, we don't erase God's name. So he said, okay, I know how to stop this water. We'll write God's name on this piece of clay. We'll throw the clay into this well, this water that's coming up. He was afraid it was going to flood the whole world. So the Rebbe says, yes, you can do it in this case. And they throw the clay with God's name in, knowing that it could be destroyed in the process. And the flood waters stopped. Not only did they stop, they descended 16,000 cubits down below the ground, which is not healthy for the world. You need surface water. And it should be at least approximately 1,000 meters below the surface, not more. But this was 16,000 amos. So then he did what? He sang. King David sang. He what's the word? He composed 15 Shir HaMa'alos. He wrote 15 ascensions in order to bring the water back up 15,000 amos. So it would still be 1,000 amos below the surface. Remember we said we're going to talk about 15 a lot tonight. So David sang 15 Shir HaMa'aloses and the water stopped there. So David knew. Lefi Yoda David Shadur Mabu Ne'enshu B'Tchum Rabba Ba'avon Haznut. David knew that the deluge, the flood, was a punishment from the great deep on account of the sin of Znut. The waters of the deep were waters of hiddenness. The waters were hidden. Of course, they're down below. And guess what? What do we call Znut? We call it hidden. Znut, Kara, King Solomon called Znut. Listen to these words. This is in Proverbs 9:17. Stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So what is stolen? Think of the word, stolen water and bread eaten in secret. This is, what do we say? The forbidden fruits are very tasty, right? Something that's forbidden all of a sudden becomes more desirous than anything else. So stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So there's a connection between the word stolen water and the bread that's eaten in secret. Mayim gnuvim yim taku V'lechem starim yinam. So what he's claiming here is that the mayim gnuvim, the waters that are stolen, that's hidden. And that's opposite of what you're supposed to do. Ready for this? It's also in Mishlei, Proverbs, chapter 5, verse 15. Drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own spring. Which means what you should be satisfied with what you have. Your marriage, your wife is your priority. Don't look outside of the marriage. This goes for females as well, right? It's not just a male issue, but I think the male is tested in a different way. Let's say it like that. Drink water from your own. Shatei mayim miborecha v'noizli mitoch be'erecha. That's the first idea. Then also he says, therefore, K'shahaya Dovid tzarik la'alos techum. We already mentioned when he wanted to bring it up 15 ascensions, 15,000 amos, he sang these 15 songs of ascension. Well, he was afraid. Haya mityare shema al yedei she'alehu yatzif olam. He thought that if he brought up too much, it would flood the world. Kederek shenaseh ledur mabul, similar to the way that it flooded out the world. That's why he said these 15 shir malices. As a hint to what? As a hint that the Jewish people, and the merit of the Jewish people guarding themselves against sexual immorality, and that the name Yud Hey would be able to mediate between them and save them from this great tragedy of a flood. Now, in one of the Shir HaMa'alot, you have in Psalms 128, verse 3, it says, Eshtecha kegefen Peria. Now, how would you say your wife? Ishtecha. Ishtecha. But this vowelization is Eshtecha. Why is it Eshtecha? Doesn't make sense. Well, the Kli Yakar makes sense out of it, because he tells us that the segul is the three dots that look like this. You know when you have a bowling ball? It has the three dots. You know what I mean? So, why are there three dots? It should be Ishtecha, one dot. It says that the aleph is Nikuda b'segul. The aleph of the word, your wife, I'll just tell you what that verse says. Your wife will be as a fruitful vine in the innermost parts of your house. Your sons will be like olive shoots around your table. Eshtecha kegefen Peria. And your house will be blessed. Why? When will that happen? Lahar shemedaber bezman shlosha shutafim ba'adam. That bracha will happen when there's only, I'm using the word only, he doesn't say only, when there are three partners in man. We know that man has three partners, but how? When there's only three partners. When it's limited to those three partners, that means there's going to be peace. Right? When people's eyes are focused and their hearts are focused and they're working on their marriage, because it's work. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's worth it. It's really what life is about. It's the key. You got to get married. You got to make the effort, to put it that way. You got to try. Now, I just want to explain something about how do we know there's three partners in man? Well, the Gemara tells us that the man brings the white. Use your imagination. The woman brings the red. So the man brings the white, that helps with the bones and the teeth. The woman brings the red, which helps with the blood and the flesh. And God brings the spirit. But listen to this. Aleph, Daled, Mem. Aleph, Daled, Mem is the word Adam. It has the gematria of 45. Right? Mem is 40, Daled is 4, and Aleph is 1. 45. So if you take, we said the father and the mother and God are three partners. So Av is the father, Aleph Bet. The gematria is 3. Mother is Aim, Ima, Aim. That's 41. 41 and 3 is 44. But we said the word Adam is 45. So you're missing one. Well, you have the Aleph. Aleph always represents Hashem. Because God is one, Also, even the letter Aleph, it's a Vav, like this, on its side, and you have two Yuds. The gematria of, when you look at it in that sense, is the Vav is 6, and the two Yuds are 10, times 2 is 20, 26. 26 is the gematria of Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Now, just a few more minutes. And I lost my place. Here we are. So, when you have both the mother, the father, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara in Kedushin, page 30, side B, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shutaf b'davar, when God is partner in the relationship. They even have this idea in America on the billboards in the Bible Belt. A family that prays together stays together. Right? When you have God in the family, you have a much better chance. First of all, I want you to know the whole concept of marriage is a Jewish idea. And I'm going to read from you the Rambam before we close. It's a fascinating Rambam. Im kain shein ya is mitavek beinayim. The Yud and the Hey is actually the glue. It's the mediator between them. And that's why the word Pariah has the Tosefet of the Yud Hey at the end. So too, Chazal tell us in Gemara Sucha that between the Ezrat Yisrael and the Ezrat Nashim, there were 15 steps. This is where the Levi'im sang during the Korbanos and during the Simcha Pei Shoeva. So between the women's section and the men's section, you had 15 steps. This teaches you that what? There's actually a connection of 15 between male and female. This is between the men's section and the women's section. You have the 15 steps. Dovid didn't make this up. Dovid received from God the floor plans, the blueprint for the Beit HaMikdash. At least he approved what David had decided. Either way, it's from God. He calls it Nimshach Mikdushat Shem Shel Yah. This also stems and flows out from the holiness of the name of the Yud and the Hey. Al Kain Hayukol Midos Halalu. That's why all of these measurements of the ark, of the 300 times the 50 times 30. We went through the whole thing in the beginning. So whoever came late, I'll fill you in. They're of the Teva Tamid Kroivim Mispar Tesvav. They all surround the number 15. Now I want to close just by mentioning real quick this idea. When I watched the King and Queen of England get married, I mamish had tears in my eyes. It was like they're talking about the holiness of marriage. Where does the holiness of marriage come from? I want you to know the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam quotes like this: before the Torah was given, when a man would meet a woman in the marketplace and he and she decided to marry, he would bring her home. This is before the Torah. Conduct relations in private and thus make her his wife. Today we would call that a common law marriage. But there's no Kedusha. Once the Torah was given, the Jews were commanded that when a man desires to marry a woman, he must acquire her as a wife in the presence of witnesses. Only after this does she become his wife. And this is alluded to in the Torah in Deuteronomy 22:13. Okay, you can look that up. This is the way it used to be. The whole concept of Kedusha in marriage is a religious thing. I really don't understand secular people or people who aren't with religion or Jews having marriage. I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, like, if it's from the Torah, it's from the Torah itself. It means that God is in the marriage. It's actually a religious ritual, and it's actually a religious obligation. But many people, I think today, have a screw loose, if I can say. They're marrying their dogs, they're marrying, you know what I mean. They're marrying all kinds of things. So I think they should leave it as a civil contract, right? It makes sense. You can make any contract you want. But marriage, don't take the word marriage, which includes God in the relationship in a holy way, and what's the word? Pervert it. Because this is what brought such tragedy in the past. And it's a desecration to think that it's a holy matrimony, as they translate it. This is sanctification. And this is only part one. As we go on, every couple of weeks, I'll give another insight into as we progress with in Genesis. But this is just an introduction, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a mazel tov on your wedding.